She wanted to care for another guy, calling him just a study buddy, until I showed her the chats. Funny how betrayal rarely walks in like a villain. It slips in quietly, wearing soft smiles and harmless excuses, convincing you that you're the one overreacting. If I had known that the smallest shift in her tone, the slightest hesitation in her eyes, or the sudden increase in her late-night study sessions were warnings, maybe I would have prepared myself. But love makes you blind in the kindest, most dangerous way. It convinces you to trust without weighing the cost. It teaches you to hold someone so gently that you don't notice when they stop holding you back. And that's exactly where my story begins. Not with a breakup, not with a fight, not with heartbreak, but with certainty. A certainty so strong that it made the truth hurt even more. For months, she had been drifting, little things at first, the way she'd grip her phone when she walked into the room, the new habit of turning off notifications, the unexplained smile she gave her screen, the one she never gave me anymore. But every time doubt tugged at me, she would dismiss it with a laugh. "You're imagining things," she'd say, brushing her hair behind her ear in that soft, practice motion she'd always use whenever she wanted me to stop asking questions. "He's just a study buddy. You're worrying over nothing." And I believed her. Or maybe I wanted to believe her so badly that I shut my own instincts down. It wasn't just the secrecy that hurt. It was the way I kept blaming myself for noticing, the way she made me feel guilty for asking, as if caring was a crime. She had a sweet talent for making me question my own thoughts. Little phrases like, "You know I'd never do that," or "Why can't you trust me?" or the deadliest of them all, "If you love me, you wouldn't think like this." Each one was a needle, too thin to cause immediate pain, but sharp enough to leave invisible wounds. And I carried those wounds quietly, pretending they didn't sting. The night everything cracked open was ordinary in every way that mattered. A boring Tuesday, a half-finished dinner, her sitting across from me, absent-mindedly stirring her spoon through the rice while typing something under the table. She thought I didn't notice. I did. But the real breaking point wasn't the secrecy. It was the softness in her smile. Not the smile she used for me, but the one she used when she thought of someone she cared about. Someone who wasn't me. I watched her face glow faintly from her screen's light. That warmth she once reserved for my messages now redirected to someone else. And something inside me twisted, not in anger, but in realization. A quiet, heavy realization that maybe I'd been holding on to a version of her that no longer existed. I didn't confront her then. I just watched, listened, waited. I told myself I would only check her chats if I truly had a reason. And then, as if the universe wanted the truth to punch me in the chest, her phone buzzed with a preview she hadn't hidden well enough. "Did you reach home? You seem tired today. Wish I could have held you longer." The words hit me with a cold clarity that erased every excuse she'd fed me. Study buddy? If that was studying, then I had been failing every exam in this relationship without even knowing. Even then, even crushed by the weight of that message, I wasn't angry. I was numb, quiet. A stillness settled inside me, the kind that comes only when the truth becomes impossible to ignore. She looked up at me then, smiling as if everything was normal, as if she wasn't slowly replacing me in a place I thought was secure. "I'll be going to help him with his notes tomorrow," she said casually. "He has a test. You don't mind, right?" My throat tightened. I nodded. What else was I supposed to do? Cling? Beg? Demand love that wasn't mine anymore? But somewhere beneath the numbness, something was shifting. A line had been crossed, a truth uncovered, a wound opened. And I knew, whether I wanted to or not, that the story was no longer about trust but proof. And proof, unlike love, doesn't lie. The next morning began with the kind of silence that feels almost staged. Too calm, too gentle, too careful, as if the universe was holding its breath for what would happen next. She moved around the house humming faintly, a tune I didn't recognize, one she must have picked up from the person she now spent so much time with. It was strange how even her happiness had changed tones. It wasn't the natural, familiar softness she once showed me. It was sharper, lighter, the kind born from anticipation. Anticipation for someone else. I watched her tuck her hair behind her ear again, the same motion as always, But this time it wasn't meant for me. It was preparation. A signal she gave herself before seeing him. The so-called study buddy. I asked her casually what time she'd be back. She answered casually, too. Too casually. Late, probably. He needs help with 2 chapters. She didn't look at me when she said it. Her eyes were elsewhere on the mirror, checking if her lipstick was even, smoothing the soft pink shade she never wore for me anymore. It was impossible not to see the difference now. The effort she used to put in for me had quietly shifted toward him, little by little, until I was left with leftovers. Leftover time, leftover attention, leftover affection. But betrayal doesn't just break you. It teaches you to observe in ways you never did before. So, even while pretending everything was fine, I watched the signs she thought she hid. The double-checking of her phone before leaving the room. The way she always angled her screen away from me. The nervous smile whenever a message popped up. The long pauses before she replied to my questions, as if her mind was somewhere else. Because it was... And through it all, she continued calling him just a friend, a study partner, someone who needed her help. I wanted to confront her then, to ask the questions burning in my throat. But I held back, not because I was afraid of her answer, but because I already knew it. She would deny. She would twist the narrative. She would act wounded, as if I were the one breaking her trust by suspecting anything at all. That had become her strategy. Make me feel guilty, make me question myself, make me the unreasonable one. And I was tired of playing the fool in a game I didn't even know we were playing. Instead, I decided to let her leave. Let her walk into the lies she built. Let her step deeper into the truth she tried so hard to hide. Because sometimes you don't need to chase answers. People reveal them on their own when they think you're not paying attention. When she finally left the house, she didn't hesitate to smile at her phone. She didn't try to hide the excitement this time. Maybe she assumed I'd stopped noticing. Or maybe she didn't care anymore. Her voice was soft when she said goodbye, softer than it had been in weeks, almost too gentle, like she was offering me a distraction, a comfort to keep me quiet. Take care, okay? I'll be back soon. The irony stung. She wasn't going to take care of me. She was going to take care of him. The moment the door clicked shut behind her, something inside me settled, a painful, heavy calm. I sat there for a long moment, staring at the silence she left behind, thinking about the man on the other side of the messages. What did he have that made her forget everything we had built? Was he funnier, smarter, more exciting, or was he simply new? People crave novelty more than loyalty. I was learning that the hard way. But the thing about silence is that it eventually demands action, and mine came in the form of curiosity laced with hurt. Her laptop was still on the table, half open, screen glowing faintly. I had never touched her devices before. I never needed to. But today, trust was no longer a sacred promise. It was a wound that begged to be examined. I didn't open the laptop with anger. I opened it with trembling fingers and a heart that already knew what it would find. Her password hadn't changed. That almost made me laugh. She trusted me enough to leave the door unlocked, just not enough to tell the truth. The moment the screen lit up, I felt guilt and relief collide in my chest. Because right there, pinned at the top of her chats, was his name. Not the group chats, not her friends. The person she insisted was nothing. I clicked. The first message I saw wasn't dramatic. It wasn't explicit. It was simple, innocent looking even. Did you sleep well? I was thinking about you. But sometimes, the simplest words hold the deepest betrayal. I scrolled. More messages. More softness. More care. Words she once gave me now gifted to someone else. Details about her day she never shared with me anymore. Photos she had claimed she hadn't taken. Inside jokes I didn't understand. Plans she hadn't told me about. My heart didn't break in a single moment. It broke slowly, message by message, realization by realization, until I reached one line that hollowed me out completely. Don't worry, he doesn't suspect anything. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat back, feeling something inside me go quiet. A quiet too deep to ignore. A quiet that said, this is no longer a misunderstanding. It was betrayal. And now, for the first time, I wasn't the blind one anymore. I closed the laptop slowly, as if shutting the screen would somehow soften the impact of what I'd just seen. It didn't. The truth lingered in the room, heavier than the silence, heavier than all the doubt she'd ever dismissed. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling, trying to understand the exact moment she slipped away from me. Maybe it wasn't a single moment. Maybe it was a series of small choices, one ignored call, one late-night message, one study session, too many, until she drifted so far that I couldn't reach her anymore. Betrayal never explodes. It erodes. Slowly, quietly, consistently. And now I was sitting in the ruins of something I once thought was unbreakable. For a long time, I didn't move. I didn't know how to. Her words echoed through my mind like a cruel whisper. Don't worry, he doesn't suspect anything. Suspect, as if I were some clueless obstacle, some shadow in the corner of her life. She believed she could lie to forever. It was surreal. This was the girl who once held my face between her palms and promised she'd never hurt me. The girl who used to text me goodnight, as if missing one message would cause the world to collapse. The girl who once told me that honesty mattered more than anything. Now that same girl was crafting lies with ease. Effortlessly, like breathing. I tried to understand her. Part of me wanted to believe she was confused, lonely, overwhelmed, that she didn't mean to fall into someone else's arms. But the chats told a different story, a story of intention, of comfort, of affection she willingly offered to someone who wasn't me. She had made space for him. She had made time for him. She was making a future with him. And I was standing at the doorway, watching her walk out of ours. Hours passed without me realizing. The sun shifted. Shadows moved across the room. But my thoughts stayed fixed on her words, her lies, her choices. Every memory of us replayed, like scenes from a movie I didn't want to watch anymore. Our late-night conversations. Our stupid arguments. Our whispered dreams. The promises she made when she held my hand too tightly. The laughter that once felt like home. All of it felt tainted now, poisoned by messages she had sent while sitting next to me. I wondered how many times she had smiled at her phone while I held her hand. How many times she had told him things she never breathed to me. How many times she thought of him while lying in my arms. But here's the thing. Heartbreak doesn't kill you. It transforms you. It burns away illusions you didn't know you were hiding behind. And as I sat there, letting the truth settle into my bones, something inside me shifted. Not in rage, but in clarity. I realized I wasn't broken. I wasn't weak. I wasn't a fool. I was simply someone who loved deeply, and she was someone who didn't know how to hold that love anymore. By the time evening approached, my emotions had settled into a quiet steadiness. A steadiness I didn't expect. I wasn't planning revenge. I wasn't planning to scream or accuse or beg. I was planning to show her the truth she thought I'd never see. Not to hurt her, but to free myself. Because the worst part of betrayal isn't the act itself. It's the pretending. And I was done pretending. When the door finally opened later that night, she walked in with the same soft smile she used earlier. The one meant to cover tracks she didn't think I'd follow. "I'm back," she said casually, setting her bag down. It was a long day. She stretched her arms, avoiding my eyes. That was her new habit. Avoid eye contact. Avoid accountability. But tonight, I wasn't going to look away. Did he study well? I asked. The question was simple. Too simple. She froze for a second. A small second. But it was enough. Her smile wavered. Her throat bobbed. "Yeah," she replied, forcing casualness. He needed a lot of help. I nodded, slowly, calmly. "Interesting," I murmured, because I read the chats. Her entire body went still. In that moment, I watched every lie she'd built collapse in her eyes. The shock, the fear, the guilt, all of it flickered across her face in rapid succession. She opened her mouth to speak, to invent a new excuse, a new story, a new version of events, but nothing came out. She just stared at me, wide-eyed, as if hoping I was joking, as if she could still talk her way out of the truth. "I saw everything," I said quietly. "Every word, every message. Every plan you made behind my back. Her lips trembled, and for a moment she looked like the girl I used to know, the one who loved me honestly. But the mask had already broken, and I finally saw the truth beneath it. She whispered my name, almost begging, but I didn't flinch. Not anymore. Her voice cracked when she finally managed to speak, but even then, the words came out fragmented, weak, unsure, like her lives were collapsing faster than she could rebuild them. "It's not what you think," she whispered, the oldest, most predictable sentence in the history of betrayal. She stepped toward me cautiously, as if approaching a wounded animal she feared might lash out. But I wasn't angry. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't breaking. I was calm, painfully calm, and that scared her more than anything else. "What do I think?" I asked quietly, leaning back against the sofa, arms crossed, eyes fixed on her. "Explain it to me. Explain what I read. Explain what he said. Explain what you said. Explain why you told him I didn't suspect anything." Her breath hitched. Her eyes glistened, not with regret, but with fear. Fear of consequences. Fear of being exposed. Fear of losing control over a situation she thought she managed perfectly. She stammered, grasping for excuses like drowning hands, reaching for a rope that wasn't there. He's struggling. He's going through a lot. I was just helping him. Maybe it got a little emotional, but I cut her off with a slight raise of my hand. Not harsh, not dramatic, just enough to silence her. A little emotional, I repeated, the word sharp but steady. "Is that what you call letting someone else wish they could hold you longer? Is that what you call sending him photos you never shared with me? Is that what you call lying to me every night before leaving to take care of him?" She closed her eyes for a moment, as if the weight of her own choices was finally too heavy for her to carry. But it was strange. She still wasn't apologizing. She wasn't owning it. She wasn't breaking down out of guilt. She looked like someone desperately searching for a version of the story where she wasn't a villain. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she murmured, shaking her head slowly, as if trying to convince herself more than me. "I was confused. I was stressed. I didn't know how to talk to you about things." "You talked to him," I said simply, "about things you didn't talk to me about." That sentence hit her like a slap. Not angry, just factual in a way facts often hurt more than accusations. She opened her mouth, closed it, tried again. "He listens," she whispered. "He makes me feel understood." "And I don't." I asked, not out of insecurity, but clarity. She flinched, not because I asked, but because she knew the truth. She knew the answer she wanted to give wouldn't match the answer she needed to. "It's not that," she insisted weakly. "You're good to me. You've always been good to me. But lately, I don't know, things felt off. You didn't notice me like before." The irony was so sharp, it almost made me laugh. "I didn't notice you," I repeated slowly. "But you were hiding your phone, sneaking out, turning off notifications, and lie about who you were with." Her eyes shot up, panic rising. She stepped toward me again, hands trembling. "I swear, nothing physical happened," she said quickly, too quickly. "It wasn't like that. I swear on everything it wasn't. I don't care about physical," I said, and her voice died instantly. Physical is obvious. It's the emotional betrayal that destroys trust. It's giving away pieces of yourself that used to belong to us. It's the intimacy, the connection, the secrets, the comfort, the affection you shared with him. That's what you broke. Not my pride, not my ego. You broke the part of us that wasn't supposed to be touched. Her legs gave out slightly, and she sat down on the edge of the sofa across from me, as if the distance suddenly felt too large to cross. For the first time, I saw her guilt, not the kind meant to manipulate sympathy, but the kind born from realization. The realization that she couldn't talk her way out of this. That I wasn't going to yell, or beg, or cry. That I was done carrying the weight of her choices. "I'm sorry," she whispered finally. Soft, barely audible. "I messed up. I know I did. I don't know why I did it. I don't know what I was thinking." But her apology came too late. Like a bandage after the wound had already turned into a scar. "What do you want from me right now?" I asked calmly. "Do you want forgiveness? Do you want time? Do you want me to pretend this didn't happen? Or do you want to keep lying until the truth hurts less? She stared at me, tears spilling now, and for a moment she looked small, fragile in a way I had never seen. I want you, she said quietly, desperately. I want us. I want to fix this. The words might have meant something once. But not now. Not after everything. You didn't choose us, I replied softly. You chose him. Over and over again. Even when you had the chance to be honest with me. You didn't fall accidentally. You walked into it. Slowly. Intentionally. She sobbed quietly, covering her face with her hands. But I didn't reach out this time. I didn't pull her close. I didn't offer comfort. Because this time, the pain she felt wasn't mine to fix. The room felt colder. Quieter. She looked at me through tear-filled eyes, waiting for me to break, to soften, to reach for her like I always had. But I didn't. Not anymore. Her crying filled the room in uneven waves, the kind of quiet sobs that used to pull me toward her instantly. But now they only echoed against the walls, empty and distant. I watched her hands tremble as she wiped her face, watched her try to gather herself, watched her search my eyes for even a hint of softness. There was a time when that would have been enough, when one tear from her would have unraveled me. But tonight, something had changed. I wasn't cold. I wasn't cruel. I was just done. Not because I stopped caring, but because caring alone couldn't keep a relationship alive. Not when trust had been buried beneath lies. She finally lifted her head, eyes red, voice shaky. Please say something, she whispered. Don't just sit there looking at me like I'm a stranger. I exhaled slowly. I'm trying to understand, I said, though in truth, I no longer needed understanding. I'm trying to see if there's anything left to fight for. Her breath caught. There is, she insisted, leaning closer. There's us. We've been through so much. We can move past this. I shook my head gently. We didn't go through this together. I went through alone. You were with him. The truth struck her like another blow, and she crumpled further, hands clasped tightly in her lap. I could see she wanted to argue, wanted to piece together some explanation that would soften betrayal. But the evidence sat like a mountain between us. And mountains don't move with apologies. She tried again. It wasn't serious, she whispered, voice cracking. It was a mistake. A stupid emotional mistake. I never planned to leave you. A hollow laugh almost slipped from my lips, but I caught it. You didn't plan to leave. I agreed. You planned to keep me. And him. You wanted both. My stability and his excitement. My commitment and his attention. My love and his novelty. Her face twisted with guilt, because she knew I was right. She had been living in two worlds, two connections, two versions of herself, and she thought she could balance them without either breaking. But all lives have an expiration date, and hers had just reached it. I didn't mean for it to go that far, she whispered. It didn't just go that far, I replied softly. You walked it there, step by step. Silence spread between us. Thick, heavy, undeniable. This wasn't a fight. It was a realization. A quiet unraveling of something we had both once believed would last. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. I stared at the floor, thinking about the messages, the memories, the pain. Thinking about how easy it would have been for her to tell me the truth before everything spiraled. Thinking about how many times I had been right beside her while her heart was somewhere else. And somewhere in that silence, I felt the final thread snap inside me. Not with anger, not with hate, but with acceptance. Finally, I looked back at her. Tell me something honestly. I said, if I hadn't seen the chats, would you have stopped? The question broke her. Completely. Her face fell, her lips parted, and a storm of panic flashed through her eyes. She knew the only honest answer was the one that would destroy the last thing she was holding on to. She didn't speak. She didn't have to. Her silence was my answer. I nodded slowly. That's what I thought. She reached for my hand on instinct, but I pulled it back gently, not harshly, just firmly enough to show her the truth. You weren't going to stop, I said. Not until it got boring, or complicated, or until he hurt you. Then you would have come back to me, asking for comfort you had already given away. Her tears fell harder now, but there was nothing she could say to change the reality we were facing. She had broken something that wasn't supposed to be breakable, and I wasn't going to pretend otherwise. I don't hate you, I said quietly. I'm just tired. Tired of being loyal alone. Tired of trusting alone. Tired of loving alone. She shook her head desperately. I'll fix it. I'll block him. I'll delete everything. Just don't give up on me. But she didn't understand. It wasn't about him anymore. It was about the version of her she had chosen to become. And the version of me I refused to be anymore, the one who stayed even when he wasn't chosen. She kept repeating the same promise. I'll fix it. I'll change. I'll make it right. As if saying the words enough times to reset everything. But the more she reached for me, the more I felt myself stepping back, not physically, but emotionally, like my heart was rewinding itself, slowly pulling away from the space where hers used to live. This wasn't a moment I ever imagined. The moment I would no longer feel the pull toward her, no longer ache to comfort her, no longer believe her tears. But here I was, watching her break, realizing it wasn't my job to put her back together anymore. She wiped her face again, breathing shakily, her voice barely holding itself together. I can't lose you, she whispered. You don't understand. He wasn't you. He was just... She trailed off, choking on the weight of her own excuses. He was just someone who made me feel seen for a moment. That's all. He doesn't matter. You matter. You're the one I love. Her words hit me, but they didn't sink the way they used to. Love wasn't a shield anymore. It was an echo bouncing through a hallway where doors had already shut. I wanted to believe her, desperately, but belief requires trust, and trust requires honesty. And honesty was the first thing she abandoned. You keep saying I matter, I said slowly, but you didn't act like it. She closed her eyes as if the truth stung like fire. I know, she whispered. I know, and I hate myself for it. But that was the problem. She hated the consequence, not the choice. She hated being caught, not the act itself. She hated the result, not the effort she put into keeping two lives running side by side. She opened her mouth again, but I stepped forward this time, not toward her, but toward the window behind her. I needed space to breathe, space to think. The night outside was calm, dark, indifferent to the storm unfolding in this small room. Cars passed, lights flickered. People walked by outside, living their ordinary lives while mine cracked quietly from the inside. I thought we were unbreakable, I said without looking at her. I thought whatever came, we'd face it together. I never imagined that the thing I'd have to face would be you. The words made her collapse into her hands again, shoulders shaking. Please, she whispered, voice trembling. Please don't say that. I made a mistake. A horrible one. But I never stopped loving you. A sad smile touched my lips, not mocking, not cruel, just tired. You didn't stop loving me, I said. You just stopped choosing me. Her breath caught again. That sentence dug deeper into her than anything else I had said so far, because it was the truth she'd been avoiding, even from herself. Love can exist quietly in the background, untouched, unchanged. But choosing someone is active, daily, intentional. And she had been choosing someone else, piece by piece, message by message, moment by moment. I'm trying, she whispered. I'm trying right now. Doesn't that matter? I turned to face her fully. It matters, I said, but it's not enough. She stared at me through wet lashes, confusion twisting into panic. Why isn't it enough? I'm here. I'm admitting everything. I'm willing to fix it. Why isn't that enough? Because I'm tired of being your backup plan, I answered softly. The sentence hung in the air, heavy, undeniable. Her lips parted, but she couldn't form words. She knew it was true. She knew exactly where she had placed me. Not first, not even second, just somewhere safe, somewhere convenient, somewhere to return to when the thrill faded. I sighed, rubbing my temples. Do you know what hurts the most? I asked, not that you talked to him, not that you lied, not that you hid it. What hurts is that you trusted him with the parts of you I thought were mine, the vulnerable parts, the soft parts, the parts you used to share only with me. Her expression crumbled completely. I didn't mean to. You did, I said gently. That's why it's called a choice. Silence fell again, deeper this time, like the final quiet after a storm, when everything is still broken, but the thunder has run out of energy. She looked small now, fragile in a way I never imagined I'd see her. And I wasn't angry anymore, just heart-weary, emotionally drained, burned out from giving more love than I received. When she finally spoke, her voice was tiny, almost inaudible. What do I have to do to make you stay? I looked at her for a long moment, the answer forming slowly, painfully in my mind. And when I spoke, my voice was quiet, steady, unshakable. This time, I said, it's not about what you can do. It was about what I needed, about who I was becoming, about choosing myself, maybe for the first time. In the days that followed, I learned something unexpected about myself, something I probably wouldn't have understood if none of this had happened. Closure doesn't come when the truth is revealed. It comes when you finally stop needing it. For a long time, I held on to the idea that she owed me an explanation, a proper apology, a confession that acknowledged everything she did. But as I slowly drifted away from her orbit, I realized I didn't need any of that. I didn't need her words or guilt or regret to validate what I felt or what I went through. The truth had already done its job, and so had the pain. Healing didn't arrive in a single moment, like a sunrise breaking over the mountains. It came quietly in pieces, like the first morning I woke up and realized I hadn't checked my phone for her messages. Or the afternoon I passed by the cafe where we used to sit and felt nothing. Or the night I replayed everything she had said to me, all her excuses, all her sweet lies, all her rehearsed reassurances. And instead of getting angry, I simply felt tired. Tired, but not broken. In the silence that followed her exit from my life, I found space in myself, space I didn't even know I needed. I stopped wondering who she was talking to. I stopped dissecting her excuses. I stopped imagining the conversations she might have been having with him late at night. Instead, I began picturing my own future, a version of my life where I wasn't constantly questioning someone's loyalty or deciphering hidden meanings in their messages. A version of my life where love didn't feel like a battle, but something soft, something warm, something safe. And strangely, the universe responded. Slowly, gently, quietly. It wasn't a dramatic twist or a cinematic moment. It happened the way healing always happens, naturally, without warning. I met new people. I laughed more often. I took myself out instead of waiting for someone to text. I learned to enjoy my own company again, the version of me that existed long before betrayal entered my life. And one day, almost accidentally, I crossed paths with someone who didn't remind me of her at all. Someone calm, someone patient, someone who didn't speak in half-truths or hide behind fragile excuses. She wasn't loud, she wasn't dramatic, she wasn't intense, she was steady. And that steadiness felt like breathing after being underwater for too long. She never tried to replace anything or anyone. She wasn't there to fill a void. She was simply there, present, kind, honest. And for the first time in months, I felt something inside me shift. Not a spark, not a dramatic rush, but a sense of peace. A peace I didn't realize I'd been starving for. As for my ex, she tried to return once more. Not with cries or accusations this time, but with silence disguised as maturity. She texted one evening, a simple, "I hope you're doing okay." No apologies, no explanations, no ownership. Just the kind of message people send when they want to re-enter your life without acknowledging how they left it. For a split second, the old version of me stirred. The one who would have jumped at any sign of her attention, who would have read into her words like they carried a hidden meaning. But I only stared at the message for a moment, then turned off my screen. I didn't need to respond. I didn't need closure. I didn't need her to acknowledge anything. I had outgrown the version of myself that still lived inside her memory. And that was enough. I realized something important that night. Some people come into your life as lessons, not blessings. And she was a lesson I would never forget. The kind that hurts but ultimately reshapes you into someone wiser, someone stronger. Someone who no longer confuses mixed signals with affection or excuses with loyalty. Someone who no longer believed that love should feel like chasing, waiting, or settling for half answers. So I let her message fade into the unread pile where it belonged, and I went on with my night. I didn't feel triumphant or victorious. I didn't feel the need to prove anything. I simply felt free, because real closure isn't an apology. It isn't a conversation. It isn't a neatly tied ending. Real closure is choosing yourself after someone else didn't. And that night, for the first time in a long time, I did exactly that. And maybe, just maybe, that was the real beginning of my story. The part where I finally stopped waiting for loyalty from the wrong person and opened the door for someone who didn't need to be convinced to stay.